You vividly recall a past event, yet the facts just don't quite line up. Or worse, someone you trust, your controller, insists your memory is entirely wrong. So why do you feel so certain about things that apparently never occurred? This is the dark psychological paradox of what's called memory illusion crafting. It's a systematic, deliberate exploitation of the brain's own flexibility. And we're going to break down exactly how it works. All right, let's just get right into it. The whole idea of remembering what never happened, that feeling, that disorienting, gut-wrenching feeling of being absolutely sure about something only to have someone else flat out deny it, well, that's not just you having a bad memory. It's the paradox of false certainty, and it's often the signature of a deeply manipulative tactic. In this explainer, we are going to dismantle this exact phenomenon. We're going to look at how it works, why it is so scarily effective, and, most importantly, what you can actually do to defend your own reality. To have any chance of defending yourself, you first have to know what you're up against. You have to be able to name the tactic. And what we're talking about here is reality erosion. This goes so far beyond simple lying. This is a strategic weapon designed to crumble your perception of reality itself. And the battlefield? It's not out in the open. The entire war is fought inside your own mind, targeting your personal history, your own memories. So the technical term for this weapon is memory illusion crafting, or MIC. Now, the key phrase to focus on here is memory's reconstructive nature. See, here's something you have to understand. Our memory does not work like a video recorder. It's not a perfect playback of events. Every single time we recall something, our brain literally rebuilds that memory from bits and pieces of information it has stored away. Think of your brain less like a camera and more like a collage artist, piecing things together. Now, memory illusion crafting deliberately exploits that reconstruction process. This isn't about you having a bad memory. No, it's a calculated strategy to feed false information into that collage-making process. This is the very engine that powers the most severe, most damaging forms of gaslighting. So you might be asking, why would anyone do this? What's the point? Well, the goal is as simple as it is brutal: total control. If a manipulator can make you doubt your own mind, if they can make you question your own recollections, they can effectively erase your version of the past. And think about it. If they control the past, they get to dictate your present and your future. They become the one and only source of truth in your life, gaining absolute control over your entire reality. Now, these manipulators aren't wizards. They can't just create these illusions from nothing. They work by preying on three key vulnerabilities that are just, part of how our brains work. First, you've got the suggestibility trap. We are all susceptible to suggestion, especially from people we trust or who sound confident. If someone tells you the same story, the same version of an event over and over and over again, a part of your brain starts to go, maybe that is what happened. Second, there's something called source monitoring error. This one is wild. It's when your brain remembers a piece of information perfectly fine, but it totally forgets the source. It forgets where it came from. So you remember the fact, but you can't remember, did you actually live through it, or did you just hear someone tell you about it? The manipulator lives in that gray area. And finally, there's the cognitive load factor. Look, when we are stressed, exhausted, or just plain overwhelmed with life, our brain's natural BS detector gets weak. All our mental energy is going toward just surviving the day, right? There's nothing left for critical thinking. This makes us way more likely to just accept false information without a fight. Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now we get to the absolute heart of it, the how. How is a false memory actually built and implanted inside someone's head? Because it's not random. It is a systematic three-phase process. This is their playbook. And understanding this mechanism is your key to spotting it and defending yourself. This right here, this is the blueprint for the entire deception. It starts with step 1, contamination. That's where they seed the lie. Then it moves to step 2, integration. This is the creepy part, where your own mind does the heavy lifting for them. And it all leads to the checkmate move, step 3, reality seizure. This is where they take total control. Let's break down each of these phases. So, everything starts with contamination. This is the opening move in the chess game. The manipulator takes a real memory that you have, and they just twist it slightly. They might deny a key fact, or even more cunningly, they'll insert a brand new false detail, usually one that's emotionally charged. For example, after an argument, they might say, "I can't believe you were screaming at me like that." Now, in reality, maybe you were just speaking firmly, but they've now introduced the word screaming. This creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. It's that deeply uncomfortable mental static you feel when your brain is holding two conflicting ideas at once. My memory says I was calm, and their confident memory says I was screaming. Our brains absolutely hate that feeling. And this is where it gets really insidious, because your brain hates that cognitive dissonance. It will do almost anything to make it stop. It has a powerful primal drive for coherence. It needs the story of your life to make sense. So, to resolve that mental stress, it often takes the path of least resistance. You might start thinking, well, maybe I was more upset than I remember. Maybe my voice was raised. Maybe it could be called screaming. And slowly, through their repetition, your brain, seeking peace and a single unified story, begins to integrate that false detail, the screaming, into the original, genuine memory. It's not a conscious choice. It's your brain's own self-preservation instinct being turned against you. And that's it, right there. This is how you come to remember things that never happened. It's the direct result of that integration process. You aren't just giving in to end a fight. Your brain has literally rewritten the memory file. And because of that source monitoring error we talked about, you now genuinely recall screaming. That false detail is woven into the fabric of the real event, and you feel that powerful sense of certainty that comes with a real memory, but for something that simply never happened. This brings us to the devastating final phase: reality seizure, the checkmate. Once that false memory is firmly installed, the manipulator weaponizes it against you. Weeks or months later, in a totally different argument, they'll say something like, "See, this is the problem. You always overreact. Remember how you screamed at me that time?" They use your own fabricated memory as proof that you're unstable, that your perceptions are unreliable. And at this point, what can you even say? You remember it happening. This is the end game. You finally surrender, you stop trusting your own mind, and you start relying on them to tell you what's real. So, why does this work so terrifyingly well? It's because this isn't just a disagreement about facts, it's much deeper than that. It is a full-blown battle for your narrative. It's a psychological conflict between two powerful opposing needs: the manipulator's need for control and your brain's need for coherence. This really breaks it down. On one side of the scale, you have the manipulator's goal: ultimate narrative control. They want to be the author of the story so they can act with impunity, so they can't be held accountable. And on the other side, you have the target's vulnerability, our fundamental human drive for coherence and self-trust. We need our world to make sense. The manipulator exploits this by creating chaos and then offering up their false version of events as the only way to restore order and make the confusion go away. And a stressed out brain will often grab onto that simple false story just to feel stable again. Okay, that was a lot, and it's heavy stuff. But understanding the mechanism is the biggest step. Knowledge by itself isn't enough, though. So now we're going to pivot. We're moving from analysis to empowerment. Let's talk about the real, actionable tools you can use to defend yourself and start to reclaim your own reality. Your single most powerful weapon of defense is what we'll call the digital fact log. The most important words here are external reality anchor. Your memory is internal, it's malleable, and as we've seen, it's the manipulator's playground. But a fact log, a quick email you send to yourself, a note in a secure app, a text to a friend, that is external. It is solid. It's permanent. The process is simple. Right after a difficult conversation, take 2 minutes and write down the key facts. He said X, I said Y, we agreed on Z. And critically, make sure it has a timestamp. This log becomes your anchor in reality. It's an objective record that they cannot distort or deny later on. That's the entire goal. You are fundamentally shifting the source of your truth. You are taking it out of the vulnerable, subjective realm of your internal memory, and you are anchoring it to something external, objective, and unchangeable, documented facts. So when they come back a week later and say, that's not what happened at all, you don't have to desperately search through a fuzzy, contaminated memory. You can just look at your log. It starves the gaslighting of its oxygen. So let's boil this whole defensive strategy down into 3 clear, actionable steps. Number 1, as we've said, create and maintain that digital fact log. It is non-negotiable. Number 2, and this is just as important, you have to learn to refuse the memory debate. The second they say you're remembering it wrong, that's your signal to disengage, not to argue. And number 3, start practicing conscious source monitoring. Actively ask yourself, wait a minute, do I remember this happening, or do I just remember them telling me this happened? Learning to separate those two things is a superpower. Now, refusing to debate is hard, especially in the moment. So here's a powerful word-for-word script you can memorize and use. When they challenge your memory, you calmly and firmly state, my memory of that event is X. I will not debate the accuracy of my personal recollection. And then, and this is the most important part, you go silent. The power here isn't what you don't do. You don't justify, argue, defend, or explain yourself, the jade cycle. That's their trap. This script is a brick wall. You state your reality and you shut the conversation down. It denies them the entry point they need to start the contamination process all over again. So let's bring all of this home. Let's land the plane and anchor your truth. We've put a name to the tactic, we've dissected the three-phase mechanism of the attack, and we've laid out a clear, practical defense. The final piece is to really internalize the single most empowering takeaway from all of this. If you only remember one thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. That feeling of confusion, that self-doubt, that worry that you're losing your mind, that is not evidence of a bad memory. It's not a sign of instability. It is the intended result of a calculated psychological attack. Your memory has been chosen as a strategic target. You are not flawed, you are under fire. And now you know the pattern of that attack. Memory illusion crafting is the reason you can remember things that never happened. It starts with contamination, which exploits your memory's natural malleability. That leads to integration, where your brain itself is hijacked to create a false narrative. And it all drives towards one final goal. The end goal of total reality seizure. But here's the thing, you are never powerless. You can always break the illusion. Awareness of this pattern is the first step that breaks the loop. The entire manipulative house of cards comes crashing down the moment you start that digital fact log, the moment you refuse the memory debate, and the moment you decide to anchor your truth to hard evidence that exists completely outside of their narrative and their control. So we're going to end with this one simple question. If you now truly understand that your memory is the strategic target in this psychological war, then you must also understand that you need a defense. So ask yourself this, what is your anchor? What external, unchangeable, documented truth will you use to ground your reality when the storm of deception begins? Because your answer to that question, that is your first step toward freedom.